Somewhere in the last day or two, a human being sat down and cried. Maybe it was grief. Maybe it was pain or rage or helpless laughter or a song that hit too hard or a tiny baby howling for its mother in the dark. All over the planet, every single day, water spills out of human eyes because of something we feel. We do it as newborns before we can speak. We do it as grown adults who would rather do anything else. And we treat it as the most ordinary thing in the world. But stop, for just a moment, and really look at it. Because you are doing something that, as far as we can tell, not a single other creature on Earth does. You are crying. Why do humans cry? Because here is the strange, buried truth. Lots of animals make sounds of distress. A whimpering dog, a squealing pig, a crying gull. Some animals, like elephants, seem to grieve, standing over their dead for hours. Some, like our closest cousins the apes, scream and throw tantrums and mourn. But shedding actual tears, real salty water welling up and running down the face, purely because of an emotion, is something science has found in exactly one animal. You. It is one of the most human things you will ever do, and almost nobody ever asks where it came from. So let's go all the way back, tens of thousands of years, to the ancient humans who first wept under an open sky, and ask the question their tears have been asking ever since. What is crying actually for? First, we need to understand what a tear even is, because not all tears are the same. In fact, you make three completely different kinds. The first are basal tears, the invisible ones, a thin salty film that constantly coats your eye and keeps it from drying out, washing it, feeding it, protecting it every time you blink. You are making them right now, and you never notice. The second kind are reflex tears, the ones that flood in when you chop an onion, or grit blows into your eye, or you yawn too hard, or smoke stings you. Those are just your eye slamming the emergency button and flushing out an attacker. Neither of those is mysterious. Every animal with eyes has something like them. They are plumbing. They are maintenance. But the third kind is different. The third kind are emotional tears, the ones that come from feeling, and they are found nowhere else in nature. And here's the part that sounds like science fiction. Emotional tears are not even chemically the same as the others. Tears cried from genuine emotion appear to carry a different mix inside them, including more of certain proteins and stress-related hormones, as if the body were literally using them to flush something out. When you cry from your heart, you may not just be leaking water. You may be releasing a chemical cocktail your body brewed specifically for that moment and pouring your stress out through your face. No onion has ever done that. No reflex explains it. This is something the body chose to build. So, somewhere in our deep past, evolution did something bizarre. It wired the oldest, most animal parts of a human being, the parts that feel fear and grief and love, directly to two little glands that sit above the eyes. It built a bridge between raw emotion and the surface of the face that no other species has. And evolution does not usually build expensive, complicated bridges for no reason. Which brings us to a genuine mystery, one that puzzled even the great naturalist Charles Darwin, who studied it and, in the end, could not fully explain why we weep. Because on the surface, crying looks like a terrible idea. Think about it as a survival machine for 1 second. You are an ancient human on a dangerous plane. Your senses are your lifeline, and crying attacks them. It blurs your vision, exactly when you might need to see a threat coming. It clogs your breathing and floods your nose. It makes noise, sometimes a lot of noise, the kind that carries across the dark. And it plasters a huge, unmistakable signal across your face that says, to every rival and every predator for a distance around, this one is weak right now. This one is in distress. This one is not paying attention. A wild animal that broke down sobbing in the open would seem to be begging to be eaten. By every cold rule of survival, Evolution should have deleted crying hundreds of thousands of years ago. And yet, it didn't. It kept it. It kept it in every single human culture on Earth, on every continent, from the Arctic to the desert. Which can only mean one thing. Crying must do something so powerful, so useful, that it was worth all of that danger. So what is the payoff? To find it, start where every single one of us started. As a baby, a newborn human is almost uniquely helpless. It cannot walk. It cannot cling to its mother's fur like a baby monkey, holding on for its life. It cannot feed itself, warm itself, or move itself an inch away from danger. For its first months, it can do essentially nothing to keep itself alive. Nothing except one thing. It can cry. And that cry is not weakness. That cry is a weapon, maybe the single most effective survival tool a helpless infant could possibly have. The wail of a human baby is finely tuned to be one of the most impossible to ignore sounds a human ear can hear. It is pitched and shaped to drill straight into the adult brain and set off alarm bells that are almost physically painful to ignore. It does not politely request. It screams, "Attend to me, now." In the ancient world, a baby who cried loud and hard was a baby who got picked up, fed, warmed, and guarded through the night. The silent ones, the ones who could not or did not sound the alarm, were far more likely to be overlooked and lost. Crying was the newborn's first and only language, its survival siren, and every human alive today is descended from a long, unbroken line of babies who cried and were answered. And that siren worked in both directions. Because a crying baby does not just get attention, it physically rewires the adult who hears it. The sound spikes stress and alertness in a parent's brain and body, making it almost unbearable to sit still and do nothing about it. An ancient mother or father could not simply tune it out and wander away. Their own biology dragged them back to the child, again and again, through exhaustion and cold and fear and the pull of sleep. And across countless sleepless nights, that relentless little cry was quietly building the deepest bond in all of human life. The fierce, unbreakable pull between a parent and a child, one wail at a time. But adult crying is where it gets really interesting. Because a grown, capable hunter does not need a baby's survival siren. So why do we keep crying our whole lives, right into old age? And the answer takes us to the very heart of what makes humans. Humans. We survive by banding together. Alone, a naked human is a snack. In a group, humans took over the entire planet. And a group only works if its members can trust each other, can read each other, can know instantly and honestly when one of them genuinely needs help. And that is where the tear reveals its secret power. An emotional tear is one of the most honest signals a human body can possibly produce. Think about it. You can fake a smile. You can force a laugh. You can twist your face into almost any expression you like and hold it there. But real, welling, streaming tears are extraordinarily hard to fake, and once they start, often impossible to stop. They come whether you want them to or not, sometimes at the worst possible time, which makes them a signal that is very, very hard to lie with. When ancient humans saw a member of their group truly break down in tears, they were seeing something their deepest instincts read as true. This person is not performing. This person is not manipulating. This person is really genuinely overwhelmed, or grieving, or sorry, or in agony. Tears cut straight through all the noise and posturing and social masks and say, "Believe me, this one is real." In a species whose entire survival ran on trust and cooperation, a signal of distress that almost cannot be faked was worth more than gold. And this connects to something else strange about the human face. Look closely at a human eye and compare it to almost any other animal's. Ours have a large, bright white around the colored center, far more visible than in other apes. That whiteness makes it incredibly easy to see exactly where a human is looking and to read the smallest shift of feeling in their eyes. Our faces evolved to be readable, like open books, in a way that a wolf's or a chimp's simply is not. We blush when we are ashamed. We pale when we are afraid. And we cry when we are overwhelmed. Everything about the human face seems built not to hide what we feel, but to broadcast it to the group so the group can respond. The tear is the loudest broadcast of all. And that signal did something almost magical inside the ancient band. It summoned care. When you cry in front of people who care about you, you trigger something deep and old in them. The urge to move closer, to reach out, to comfort, to help, to soothe. Crying is a call, and the answer, written into us over hundreds of thousands of years, is to come. It pulls a scattered group together around whoever is hurting. It softens hearts. A raised fist, faced with sudden, genuine tears, very often lowers. Anger meets weeping and loses its footing, because it is strangely, deeply hard to keep attacking someone whose face has just cracked open with real pain. In a small, ancient band, where a single unresolved fight could split the group and get people killed in the wild, tears may have been one of the oldest peacemakers our species ever had. A way of saying enough, without a single word. So a tear was a bond. It tied mothers to infants, and friends to friends, and the whole tribe into a single feeling body that could ache together and heal together. And nowhere did that matter more than in the face of the oldest human sorrow of all, death. Because when we look for the very first signs of the fully modern human mind in the ancient world, one of the things we find is grief. We find graves, dug with obvious care. We find the dead laid out gently, sometimes curled up as if sleeping, sometimes sprinkled with red ochre, sometimes buried with tools or with beads, or, some believe, with flowers. These were not just bodies being thrown away. These were loved ones being mourned. And around those ancient graves, we can be almost certain, there were tears. Picture it. A small group of humans, 30,000 years ago, standing over the body of someone they loved, someone who told stories by the fire, who shared their food, who was warm beside them last night and is now cold and still. And their faces do the thing that human faces have always done in that moment. They break. They weep. That grief and those tears are perhaps the beginning of something enormous. The sense that a life meant something, that a loss must be marked, that death is not simply nothing. The first tears over the first graves may be one of the first flickers of the human soul. And there is a haunting question hiding here. We were not the only humans. For tens of thousands of years, we shared this planet with other kinds of human, like the Neanderthals, who also buried their dead, who also seemed to have cared for their sick and wounded. Did they cry too? Did other human faces, now vanished from the earth, also crumple and stream with tears over their lost ones? We may never know for certain. But it is entirely possible that crying is older than our own species, that the tear was already ancient before the last of those other humans died out, leaving us as the only ones left to weep. And ancient humans did not treat those tears as a random leak. Across cultures all over the world, tears became sacred, powerful, charged with meaning. People wept in rituals and ceremonies, deliberately, communally. They believed tears could carry prayers, or wash away wrongdoing, or heal a sickness of the spirit. In many ancient traditions, mourners were expected to cry loudly and openly, and in some, professional weepers were even brought in to wail over the dead, because tears were seen as the proper, holy way to honor a life. The Romans are thought to have kept small glass vials, sometimes called tear bottles, associated with grief and mourning. For thousands upon thousands of years, humans have looked at the water running down a crying face and felt, instinctively, that they were seeing something profound and important. Not a malfunction, a message, maybe even a gift. But tears leave us with one more beautiful puzzle. Because we do not only cry when we are sad, we cry at weddings. We cry when we are so happy that we can barely stand it. We cry at overwhelming beauty, at a piece of music, at a vast landscape, at the sight of someone we love walking toward us after a long time away. We cry from sheer relief when a terror finally passes. We even cry sometimes from laughing too hard to breathe. Why on earth would the sadness signal fire off at the happiest moments of our whole lives? The best answer we have is this. Crying was never really the language of sadness alone. It is the language of overwhelm. It is what the human animal does when a feeling swells too big to hold inside the body. When the dam of the heart simply overflows, and it does not much care whether that flood is grief or joy or awe or love. Tears are the pressure valve of the soul, and the fact that we spill them at the very highest and the very lowest moments of a life, and everywhere in between, may be the truest sign of just how deeply, how helplessly human beings feel. And you can feel that overwhelm take hold of your body step by step in a way you never actually chose. It starts as a heat behind the eyes, a prickling sting you try to blink away. Then the throat tightens into an ache you cannot swallow down. Your breath catches and stutters. Your face, entirely without your permission, begins to fold. And then the eyes brim and spill over, and you are crying, whether you are a small child who has lost sight of its mother in a crowd, or a weathered old elder watching that same lost child, grown and gone for years, walk back over the hill into camp at last. Ancient humans knew both of those tears intimately. The tears of losing, and the tears of getting back what you were sure was gone forever. And here is something our ancestors surely discovered around their fires. That tears can be shared, on purpose. A story of a great loss, told in the dark. A song sung for the dead that rises and cracks. One voice breaking, and then another, until the whole circle is weeping together into the night. Crying with other people over the same thing at the same moment may be one of the most powerful bonding acts our species ever stumbled upon. It is why, even now, we still gather in the dark to hear sad songs and watch sad stories, and cry, quietly, together, among strangers. We are doing something 100,000 years old, and there is a reason it so often leaves you feeling better afterward. There is that strange, washed-clean calm that can settle over you after a really good cry, when the storm has finally passed and something inside you feels lighter, emptied out, quiet, at peace. Part of that may be chemical, the body physically letting go of what it was holding. But a huge part of it is social, and this is the ancient heart of the whole thing. When you cry, and someone comes and sits with you and holds you and stays, the crying has done its oldest job. The signal was sent, and the group answered. You are not alone. For 100,000 years, across every dark night and every fresh grave, that is what tears have quietly arranged. That no human should have to carry the very worst moments of their life completely by themselves, which makes the modern world a strange and lonely place for a crying animal. Because somewhere along the way, many of us learned to be ashamed of it. We were taught that crying is weakness, that grown-ups, and especially grown men, should swallow it down, hide it, hold it in, do it alone behind a locked door if they must do it at all. We took one of the most honest and connecting things a human body can do, and we made it private and awkward and almost embarrassing. But that shame is very new, and it is very strange. For the overwhelming majority of human history, our ancestors almost certainly wept openly and together without apology at their losses and their joys, letting the whole group see the feeling and share the weight of it. The stiff, dry, silent, swallow-it-down face is the recent invention. The crying one, the streaming, unashamed, deeply connected one, is the ancient, natural, default human face. So the next time you feel it coming, that hot pressure building behind the eyes, that tightening in the throat, that sting you try to blink away, remember what it actually is. It is not a flaw. It is not a weakness. It is one of the oldest and most uniquely human things you will ever own. A piece of technology far older than any blade or any fire, written into your body over hundreds of thousands of years. That single tear rolling down your cheek is doing exactly what tears did for the ancient humans standing over their dead and cradling their screaming newborns and making peace around the fire in the dark. It is saying, without a single word, in a language that every human who has ever lived understood the instant they saw it. This is real, and I feel it, and please come close. No other animal has ever sent that message. Only us. So cry when you need to. You are speaking the very first language our species ever had. Thanks for watching. If you love the huge, hidden stories buried inside the most ordinary parts of being human, subscribe and stick around, because next time we are digging into another strange, forgotten corner of the world of ancient humans.